one of the main challenges that we talk about on the membership is the lower members from the railroads, and there's a good reason for that because they have fewer employees than they did before. That is a challenge in itself for us to recruit and maintain the railroad membership, but also to transition into an organization where those that aren't directly employed by the railroads can represent the industry properly.
You may know the American Railway Engineering and Maintenance of Way Association, or AREMA, as the, quote, keepers of the manuals. You may know them as the, quote, people behind the largest annual railroad conference in North America. Heck, you may not know about AREMA at all. This podcast is designed, no pun intended, to change your view of who AREMA is and how AREMA has changed the trajectory of many railway careers over its 100-plus year history. Welcome to Platform Chats with your host, Walt Blesser, where he takes a moment to discuss the impacts AREMA has had on the very people who are proud to be called members. Are you ready to roll with AREMA?
ARE Corporation is a proud supporter of AREMA and Platform Chats. If you are looking to take your railway structures career to the next level, or simply start it down the right track, please visit us at arecorp.com. Please see our brand new job postings on our careers page or on our LinkedIn page.
Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of Platform Chats. I can't believe it. I was talking to my guests prior to starting the show today, and we're on number 17, folks. We are on 17 podcasts. I just a little bit beside myself. I know I bring this up every time. AREMA headquarters likes to do seasons like they think we're some kind of Netflix special. I guess maybe the engineer in me comes out, and I just like sequential numbers. So 17 is where we are. And we are, let's see, today's podcast. And then we got maybe one more. Our next episode, just to kind of pimp that, is we're going to be talking to the president of AREMA to discuss the upcoming conference. So we're 2 podcasts away from being all together in Denver at the end of August. For the first time since we were all together in 2019. So kind of wild. I've had a chance in June to go to a few in-person AREMA committee meetings, and that was a breath of fresh air. I actually saw both of my guests at one in Washington, D.C. in June, and I just couldn't believe how long it had been since we'd been together. And so today, without further ado, today we've got a theme of the expats, I guess. So the thing that all 3 of us have in common is that all 3 of us are somewhat retiring from the board of directors after our 3+ years. I know Frank's spent more than that on the board. And I really wanted to take a minute and capture what both of these individuals learned during their time after being a chairman. So, obviously a chairman or chairwoman is running a very specific committee. There's a very specific domain expertise to that committee. And the cool thing about jumping up to the board is then you're overseeing multiple committees and you're learning as to how those committees, do business versus maybe how you've done business. And then you can jump above that as well and see even a broader view. And so my hope is today we could talk a little bit about why they saw importance in participating at that level, because again, we're all volunteers in this organization and we do this because we love it. So today, representing the passenger and transit side of the house, we have Frank Miller, who is currently a vice president and director of track design at AECOM, and representing the freight side of the house, equally, of course, we're an equal opportunity folks at AREMA, is Kevin Hicks. Many of you might have known him during his reign at Union Pacific, but he's currently the Senior Vice President Freight Market Sector Leader at Trans Systems. So he's got a colored career. Both of these guys, it's like looking at a merit badge sash of an Eagle Scout. So, I'm not going to read the whole dang resume, but I am going to let them each give a brief background as to how they got in the industry, what got them to where they are today. I think all of our listeners, the feedback I receive is they're interested to say, how in the world do you even get there is half the battle. And so since I introduced Frank first, I am going to let Frank start. So Frank, take it away.
So how did I get into the industry? I graduated college in 1984, and actually, Walt, you'll appreciate this. I started as a structural engineer, and I was in the nuclear industry. And sooner after moving out of Pennsylvania to New York, they shipped my body out to Illinois, and I worked at a nuclear power plant being constructed for about 7 to 8 months. I then was afforded an opportunity to go to work for New York City Transit Authority, and I spent 4 years there, moving on to SEPTA in 1988. And while I was at SEPTA, some of the people there recommended, "Hey, you might want to think about becoming a part of AREMA." So I joined AREMA in 1988. Yes, I've been in AREMA for 34 years.
Wow.
Life member. So I'll hold off on the AREMA conversation, but that's how I got into the railroad industry. And working for the two agencies, being a project manager, actually on the design side at New York City Transit, and then more on the project manager side at SEPTA, where I had consultants and contractors work on my projects that I oversaw. And from there, I got into consulting, and I've been in consulting since 1992, ever since.
But all rail related.
All rail, yes.
And mostly passenger and transit, high speed, electrified rail.
Yes, mostly passenger transit. I have some freight, but I've worked on 9 or 10 light rail projects, some high speed initiatives with Amtrak, but some subway, a little bit of everything. Unfortunately, I have enough. As I tell people, I'm replaceable, but my library's not. I have information on all types of different modes of transit. So I've worked on all different aspects or assets, light rail, commuter rail, heavy rail, high-speed rail, and freight rail.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic. And you are talking to us from Pennsylvania, is that right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
All right. Glad to have the Northeast represented. Let's move to the Midwest. Kevin, let's go.
All right. Well, I am not a nuclear engineer. I was never anywhere smart enough to be a nuclear engineer, so that's why I became a civil engineer. But I started out, actually, I'm a second generation railroader. I kind of grew up in the industry on the labor side, where my father was in the locomotive shops for the Frisco and the BN railroads. So I kind of knew what railroads were, but didn't really have a passion for them. But then I got guided into engineering school and got the civil engineering degree. And at the time that I graduated, I had two choices: either go to work for a DOT or to go to work for a railroad. And Union Pacific called, so I went. That was in '93. I spent 25 years at Union Pacific doing just about everything there was to do in the engineering department there, from a management trainee to a construction supervisor, manager track maintenance, director track maintenance, all those things. And then ended up my career there back in where my roots were in the design and construction side, not retiring, but leaving there as the AVP of engineering design. And then had the opportunity to go over to the consulting world here just about 3 years ago, and have been really enjoying that side of the fence. The tables have turned, and now I'm the one selling and delivering the projects from the consultant side rather than driving it from the railroad side. But it's been a great going on 30 years now in the industry and in many facets of the freight side of the industry.
And I don't mean to date either of you here, and literally or figuratively, but what year did you say you started, Frank? I heard 84?
1984.
And Kevin?
Yeah, 93 for me.
93. Okay, so both of you started pre-merger and acquisition and all the things that we saw in the mid 90s, right? With Southern Pacific and Union Pacific and Burlington Northern and Santa Fe.
Lived through those with the C&W and the Southern Pacific at Union Pacific. Those were fun times.
Yeah, I I have a feeling that when you say the word fun, you're being a little facetious, but that is fantastic history, and I guess more so, it's plays into our discussion today around ARIMA because the one thing that kind of survived through all of that is probably your relationships with the people you met. These railroads are merging, and people are coming, people are going. The railroad's still got to roll. So, I heard Frank say he got pushed into ARIMA around '88. Is that right, Frank?
Yep, it was still AREA. Yes.
It was still AREA. Okay, and then so you joined which committee and why?
I actually am charter members of Committee 11 and 17.
Okay, and what are those? Because I have no
Commuter
idea.
rail systems is Committee 11, and high speed rail systems, or commuter rail and intercity passenger trains, is 11. High speed rail systems is 17. Only
Okay.
because I was very involved with at this time working at an agency moving people. So
Absolutely, and so you stayed with those ever since? Have you?
yes, and now I'm on Committee 24 as a third committee because I'm involved with rewriting and leading, being a lead instructor in the IPRE seminar.
Okay, okay, and so 11 and 17 fall underneath what we would call the functional group,
Passengers
passenger and
with
transit. Okay,
correct.
and for all of our listeners, passenger and transit, a lot of times people think of ARIMA. I think a lot of people think immediately of what Kevin's doing, and they think of big, heavy axle loads on really long trains out west. Uh, they forget about what we have going on in the Northeast and other urban city centers. So, what all falls under P&T, passenger transit? What committees? Sorry.
Okay, so committee, I'll go in numerical order. Committee 11 is commuter rail and intercity passenger, which is more the Amtrak, mostly the commuter rail systems. Committee 12 is rail transit, which is more your agencies, light rail, heavy rail, New York City Transit, SEPTA, the streetcar type stuff, and embedded track, stuff like that. Committee 17, high speed rail. Well, we really don't have true high speed rail in this country, but what we do have is mostly Amtrak. So that committee is dominated by a lot of Amtrak participation. And Committee 33 is electrical utilization, which is the traction power side of the house and substations and stuff like that.
Okay, perfect. So 12, when I think of 12, I think of direct fixation type trains. Would that be correct? Lighter
Embed a
stuff.
lot of embedded track, paved track. Yes.
Okay, got it. And then if we flip over to our friend Kevin here, your background sounds like it was Committee 1 and Committee 30, but in our discussions prior to starting the recording, I think you have an interesting story as to why you even joined Committee 30. Can you shed some light on your ARIMA history?
Yeah, when one of the jobs that I had, in the mid 2000s, from 2008, 2009, I guess, was as the director of standards and technology at Union Pacific, which dealt a lot with our R&D of all kinds of things. But in particular, at that time, we were having a lot of issues with concrete ties and how to maintain them and deal with them. And there was a lot of research in the industry going on that was being really driven by Committee 30 and the concrete tie subcommittee and the testing subcommittee in Committee 30. So we joined that and got involved with that. I guess number one, to learn, and then number two, to with a more selfish interest, to drive the industry maybe towards where we thought it should go in dealing with those kinds of issues. But then after that, we got that under control. I moved on to other positions as well, and my work got more related to what Committee 1, Roadway and Ballast, does. So I joined that committee and got more active in it. So I remained active in 30 as well, but both of those related well to the work that I was doing. I just kind of moved around to whichever one made the most sense at the time, but still stayed involved in the other one.
And that also allowed you as an owner to have a voice as to what the guidelines were saying the owners shall do, right?
Yes, and that's important. Not that any one owner needs to be able to drive the organization, but there needs to be a good cross section of owners and researchers, technical folks, suppliers, those things to have a good cross section of the industry and good understanding of different facets of the industry to push the guidelines in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's kind of to me, that's that's kind of how the genesis of ARIMA really is, how the different railroads are doing things independently, and this gave them a platform to stand on and discuss. Hey, what are you doing over here? Hey, what are you doing? Obviously at the time, many years ago, there was fierce competition between them. But at the end of the day, a bridge is a bridge. It's got to carry the load. So it's nice to know what details are working and which ones aren't. And let's darn it, I just talked about bridges. See, I'm going to get trouble for talking about structures. They're not even here today. So track. What else is in the functional group that is the track functional group? Which committees?
The two that I spoke about already are in the track functional group. Roadway and ballast number 1 and ties number 30. We also have 4 and 5, which are rail and track. So the rail committee obviously focuses on just the steel rail, but that's a bigger topic than it sounds. Everything from manufacturing, chemistry, composition, maintenance, grinding, testing, all of those things that go along with arguably the most expensive asset in the engineering side of the property. And then track, the other committee, goes a little bit bigger wider than just the rail, more of the specialty track work, maintenance practices, things of that nature. That encompasses a broader scope of what the maintenance of way folks at the railroads do.
Excellent. And so each of you, I'm assuming, spent roughly 3 years, and not all committees do this, but as a secretary, and then maybe 3 years as a vice chair, and then 3 years as a chair before you became a director. Is that correct? Or no? Did you jump around a little?
Not in my case.
Okay.
I did spend several years on committees, not formally in any of the leadership positions, but was nominated to go straight into a director position and spent several years there before being elevated to the group VP. So I say it's a shortcut. I didn't do the full 9-year path to get there, but was very involved in committee work before joining the board, though.
But you've been that's okay. Yeah, you were heavily involved in committee work. Maybe not holding a committee, the traditional committee leadership path, which is the one I took. And Frank, is that what you did?
I had 6 years. I started as a secretary, and then the vice chair stepped down, so I did a dual role, and then ascended to chairmanship. So I had the 6 out of 9 year route.
Okay, and then you both were directors, which is a 3-year role. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I was a director. I assumed someone's directorship, and then I was reappointed. So I think I was a director for 4 or 5 years, and then the functional VP for the last 3.
Okay, and same with you, Kevin. You were director for 3, and then both of you were functional groups for 3.
Correct.
Okay, and maybe you could just, one of you, maybe Frank, what you could just talk a little bit about what the role of a functional group VP is. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's been challenging during COVID. I mean, not getting together, managing and getting everybody aligned. But my job, as I have seen it, is basically to make sure that the functional groups progress their development of the manual. We know there's a big push on manual health within ARIMA, and getting stuff to ballot. Serving as a sounding board for the current leadership. How do we get things to ballot? Since I've been around ARIMA a long time, I know a lot of the people at HQ, and I help them, put them in contact with people for the right forms and the right processes. I'm still involved at the committee level as a past chairman. I'm still involved with the manual, making sure what's up to date, what's not up to date for manual health. And then the big role is leading for, like, as we just did past June, the board meetings, and getting the four functional groups together on what topics we want to see presented in the upcoming conferences, hot topics for papers, any issues we have at the committee level with leadership, succession planning, certain frustrations with getting things done, how we can fast track that, how we can use the new technology that ARIMA has rolled out on the website to their advantage to make their job easier. So back when I was a chair, I mean, we kept everything on spreadsheets. Who voted, who went to meetings, and who was not active. Things are a little supposed to be easier now. We know we've heard some of the frustrations working that out with HQ. But my job is kind of a director to keep everybody focused on the job at hand, where REMA is today, and where we want to go in the future. So, I mean, that's the short thing. I mean, I have other things I can mention about the other roles, but as the functional group VP, that's been my focus. So.
Sure. Kevin, anything you want to add to that?
Just another thing that takes a significant amount of time, but is well worth it, is that we get to review and help select the material for the conference. Review the abstracts, give guidelines, or give assistance in reviewing, and make suggestions, and we get to learn a lot about what different things are being submitted for the conference, and help shape those into the material that everyone gets to see here in another 45 days. So it takes a lot of time to do that, but it's very rewarding to be able to shepherd everyone through that. And then, like Frank said, I think the other big thing is just being a continuous, experienced voice to help new committee members, new committee leadership know what to do in any given situation, who to talk to at HQ or whatever. So they don't have to learn everything by themselves. Hopefully we've seen some of these situations before and can help them save some time and get some things done faster.
Yeah, that's a good. I don't want to forget the. Excuse me. Don't want to forget the conference papers either. So I've got a little loaded question here for each of you, and I want Frank. Maybe you could start if you want. But
Okay.
I look here and I think to myself, if I'm a younger individual, let's say I'm 26, 27, and I look at being involved in ARIMA, and then I say, I'd like to do what those guys are doing someday. That'd be great. And let's say you take the traditional path that I took, which was 9 years of committee work. Then you got the director 12, right? 9, 10, 11, 12. And then potentially, we're at like 15 years of leadership experience. And that's just to get asked or to be nominated, I think, to be in a leadership position on a committee takes many years of potential subcommittee work and potential. So it's this long path that I could see potentially even being a deterrent. And so my loaded question here is, do you guys feel that ARIMA participation and leadership participation is still relevant?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I joined ARIMA in 88. I think I got started involved with committees in 91, 94. So I put on, and I sat there as a young guy. I joined ARIMA when I was 26. So not to do the math here, and I sat at these committees, and I would go, and I was one of the younger guys in the room with a lot of older established veterans. And you question, do I belong here? And you sit by and you listen and observe, and you start to build relationships, and you start to get involved. And, someone taps you on the shoulder, say, hey, have you ever think about authoring a section of the manual? Oh, I'm not qualified. Well, you find out you are, and then you do it, and then you do it again, and you do it again. And next thing you know, in 2007, so I've been in leadership for 15 years. That's when I was tapped and asked to become a secretary. So I put in 13, 14 years at committee level doing work, and finally being asked to become part of leadership 13, 14 years later. And I'm, been doing that ever since. So yeah, it's worth it because that opened so many doors, and I met so many other people. Walt, you and I, we worked together briefly at the same company. So, and I've met a lot of people on the freight side that I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet because I'm a passenger transit. I mean, I deal mainly with Amtrak and the SEPTAs and the New Jersey Transits, and I've worked in other markets in Florida and whatever in Boston, but it's mostly on the passenger side. But I go to these conferences and I'm sitting with freight guys who I never even would have been able to meet and learn from, and build relationships and go to dinners with them and meet their wives and just learn. And it's I would. If you were to ask me 8 years later, I'm in this industry, was it worth it? Absolutely. I don't look back at all. It's been one of the greatest highlights. And as you said, to be asked by your peers to assume a position of leadership, that's a great honor. So,
yeah, I agree. And it's almost as if you can't really look at the length of the path to get, it's really the journey, right? And to me, it flew by for me. I never thought I would be doing what I'm doing today, and so I don't view it as a deterrent. I definitely feel that the participation is relevant. Kevin, I don't want to steal any thunder from you.
Well,
So why don't you?
I think you were going towards this. I mean, things change as you move through your career in this industry. When I first joined Arima, I was a young manager, didn't know much of anything, and I got to talk to people at my railroad and learn from them, but they didn't know everything either. There were other people in the industry that I could learn from. I mean, like one of the people that I think taught me the most about specialty track work happened to be a BNSF guy that I still converse with. He's been out of Arima for 10 years now, but I still converse with him. I learned a lot as a young manager from folks like that. But then as your career progresses, and the industry lends itself to this, once we get into it and get it in our blood, we don't get out generally. We stick with it. You transition and you become the one helping to guide others, to write the manual content, to answer questions across the industry. And then, Frank and I, and you too, we're now in a position where I think we're trying to bring the younger managers into the industry, into Arima, to replace where we were 25 years ago. And that's our function. And yes, Walt, back to your original question, is it a long timeline? Yes, it is. But it's not the same thing. You evolve throughout that. Your positions change throughout that. Your companies change throughout that. So it stays fresh, at least it did to me, as you move along through that long timeline.
That's evolve is a great word. Do you think, I heard you mention that the three of us are in kind of a position to recruit and replace us in the industry. Both of you have been around this industry for longer than I have. Do you believe it's harder to do that today than it was for your seniors, quote unquote, to do that with you, let's say in the mid 90s?
I'll start off there. I think that just by volume, it is a little bit more difficult. There aren't as many people in the industry as there were 30 years ago. Um, so just by that, it makes it a little bit more difficult. People are busier. There's just not as many people to choose from, that sort of thing. But the flip side of that is that I think there are a lot of quality people in the industry now that makes it a little bit easier to bring some of them in and get them going more quickly in the industry. Not to say that the people that I hired on with were not smart or anything, but the younger generation is able to pick up on things, I think, more quickly than, or they're expected to pick up on things more quickly than in the last generation. So that makes it a little bit easier from that perspective.
if you don't mind, Walt, that's kind of a loaded question for me because I've spent the last 5 years as the Arima membership chairmanship, the head of and I've seen, and you guys have heard me report at the board meetings, how membership has changed. and how we've declined. A lot of that's COVID, but a lot of it is the younger generations. They have a lot of other options to choose from with technology and computers, but once we get people involved, their ascension is a lot quicker than I guess what Kevin and I went through. There's so much more opportunity for those that are willing to jump in and do it. There's plenty of opportunity. It's just a matter of rolling up your sleeves and someone, just like I was tapped on the shoulder in 2007, right? And we've really focused on the succession planning, but within the industry, and a lot of it is systemic from the freights, just not having as many people as Kevin, they're not being involved. And I've seen, just because of the metrics I report on, how now we're a consultant-dominated industry. And that has its own challenges and problems for REMA going forward. And the class ones and the freights and the agencies are now the second highest, number of people within REMA. So we've seen the numbers decline. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but we do have some work to, I guess, being back at conference is going to help. Getting the next gen and getting some of these college seniors there, and people that are at I guess at the universities that we have, 23, 24 universities that have REMA chapters, getting them there, getting them in a room, getting them a chance to kind of like, it's seeing is believing, touching, feeling, tasting. They see these people, they get conversations, they see what it's about, encourage them to go to the committee meetings. You don't have to be a committee member. Go in there, sit, listen, observe, and then you say, hey, that's not so bad. Or I met this guy, and he was a really welcoming and opening, and I think I can do this. And I think that's where it can start to we can rebuild the REMA and where we're going in the future.
That is a great transition and kind of where I want to close this thing out. I was in the meeting. I did hear the numbers. I did hear what you reported from a membership-based perspective. So did Kevin. So do you guys think we are in a rebuilding phase in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? As you guys exit, what's the challenges for the next group of leadership to come in to the association? I liked the term rebuild. But we've got an opportunity, right? So we have. I don't mean to throw these really hard questions at you guys.
No,
but, we do. You made a big. It's been 2 years since we've had a conference.
That'll get some momentum back in our favor. I think that's a good start.
Yeah, and I think. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
One of the main challenges that we talk about on the membership is the lower members from the railroads, and there's a good reason for that, because they have fewer employees than they did before. That is a challenge in itself for us to recruit and maintain the railroad membership, but also to transition into an organization where those that aren't directly employed by the railroads can represent the industry properly. That's something that that we and the next group of leaders that follow us will really need to work on, is replacing that railroad leadership. That is, the quality of leadership isn't leaving the railroads. It's just the volume of leadership. There's just not as many of them anymore.
Yeah, it's that transition that Frank mentioned, where we, originally I believe AREA and the organization way back in the day was probably 100% railroad, is my guess, or darn near. And it's slowly trickled to 70-30, 60-40, 50-50, and now all of a sudden it's 2022. And we're seeing it's flopped, right? And so, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I think everyone's in this to work together. We're also in a different position, right? We're not doing a bunch of green build. We're doing a lot of maintenance. We're doing a lot of rebuild work.
A lot of line extensions, retrofits, state of good repair.
Right. A lot of that type of work, yeah. And putting you on the spot, Frank, I know you're a little bit. You are involved with APTA. Is that right?
Yes, I am. Not to the extent that I am a REMA, but I am involved. Yes.
Okay. So, compare and contrast. Would you say that they're going through similar issues as far as just professional organizations in this time frame?
I mean, APTA is so big, but it's dominated by the agencies, or and even at the consultant level, you know, I'm just one small person. I mean, it kind of insignificant. I'm involved at the committee level, but everything is more the glitz, more at the executives at the agencies. They kind of dominate things. They're not the technical organization that ARIMA is.
Okay.
I mean, I'm involved. One of my roles as P&T involved in leadership is I was involved in generating that memorandum of understanding between APTA and ARIMA. So ARIMA has always been the technical leader. APTA's got standards, but where the buck stops. I mean, ARIMA sets the tone, all the guidelines and practices that are contained in the 4 volumes. APTA has its place as far as with big programs and how it's involved with funding at the political level, where Washington's going with things. They do have technical committees. Their conferences are a little more glitzy than ARIMA, and that's okay. But and Kevin could probably mention this. Being on the consultant side, our overhead dollars are limited to where we can go and attend. And I'm always going to ARIMA first. I've been to a few APTA conferences, especially the rail conferences, and they're fun. It's just not this, and this is not a knock, but it's just not the same as ARIMA because
Okay.
I grew up in ARIMA, and that's who I know. And I'm dealing with the technical people, the engineers, not a guy who's in operations or stuff like that. So that's where I gravitate to. But they do have challenges, but it's just a different membership. They've got so many different committees and subcommittees. It's just a whole different makeup. And the consultants, we pay for that, not us individually as people. It's
Okay.
okay.
So maybe it wasn't a good comparison. So let me think. To
Something
close
I
this
have
out.
seen though, Walt,
Go ahead.
on the other organizations, not necessarily ones just tied to the rail industry, but other ones that I'm involved with as a consultant. The numbers for most of them may be off a little bit in total membership. But what I do see in the successful organizations is that they have a membership that basically yearns for involvement, for relationship building, for teamwork, for collaboration. And these types of organizations are wonderful places for people, especially in a world that has gone more digital, to give them an outlet to get involved personally with people, using their knowledge as a springboard, but giving them an opportunity to get something they yearn for, which is a personal interaction with other people.
So, Walt, if I could jump in, the one positive that I did take from ARIMA, and this got you and me in trouble, was not ARIMA, from APTA. Was I said, remember I mentioned tell your story, and that's how that was the genesis of our engagement committee, and leading to now you being the chair of this podcast. How can we tell our story as ARIMA? Because that's one thing APTA does very well. They tell their story. They celebrate their successes and projects and membership. And that's kind of how you and I got involved with this engagement committee. And now this, because that was the one tagline that we took away. And so that's one thing they do well, that I think ARIMA needs to do a better job of telling our story.
Do they have a podcast?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then we're doing that better.
Yes, we are.
Let's just be honest about that. Okay, scoreboard is the scoreboard, Frank. So,
Yeah.
Agreed. Look, I'm going to close this out with one last question.
Sure.
So, we started with your careers. We talked about, both of you have obviously had fantastic leadership roles. You both obviously are, you carry the banner, carry the flag for ARIMA. So, if you were to, if an employee of yours came up to you today, this afternoon, and said, "Hey, I just got offered this committee leadership role. I'm worried about the time commitment, the length, etc. But I have an opportunity to be the secretary of, XYZ committee." What would you tell that person, and why?
I guess I would start off by saying, number one, do it. But go in with eyes wide open that it is as we've already talked about, a long path. But it will take a lot of your time. So you need to be prepared for that going in. That it's a lot of work, but what you will find is that it is worth every minute that you put into it, to the value that you return from it, both from the technical knowledge that you gain, and probably more importantly from the leadership skills and relationships that you gain from the time that you commit to the committee and to the organization.
So I can't top that response because he did such an eloquent job of saying the same thing, Bode. I would say this: the rewards way outnumber the risk. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember when they said, let's go take some time. Yeah, and you put a little extra time in at nights and weekends, but as consultants, we do that anyway. So, but the rewards have far, far, far outweighed the commitment levels I had to put in. I can't put a dollar value on that. You just can't.
Agreed. Okay, fantastic. I actually had to look up when I joined Arima, and it looks like I joined in 04. So you guys have got me both of you have me smoked. But at the same time, you're also passing the baton a little bit, and I do think that there are, I wouldn't say headwinds ahead, but there's different issues. But you know what? There were different issues, I'm sure, back in 84 and 93 and now 2022. So it's all very similar. Well, I want to thank both of you. You guys have been great guests. This was a super easy podcast to put together. Both of you are just well-spoken and very much great representatives of what Arima is all about. So thank you both. And I assume I will see both of you in Denver.
I'll see you on your home turf.
On my home turf. That is correct. Excellent. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for rolling with Arima on today's episode of Platform Chats. For further information about Arima, please visit arema.org or contact us at info@arima.org.